If you are just tuning in, this is NBC's Sheila Mack Show here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and today I'd like to give a special thank you and shout out to the sponsor of this episode, and that is Hupy and Abraham, personal injury lawyers. They can be reached at 800-800-5678 or at hupy.com, HUPY.com. Tune in to learn more.
Over the last 50 years, we have helped over 70,000 clients receive more than $1 billion for their injuries. We have received hundreds of awards for the services we provide. We remain voted best and rated best throughout our practice areas and local communities.
If you've been injured in an accident, call Hupy and Abraham today at 800-800-5678.
Hupy and Abraham has been voted best by the public year after year. Now, top media outlets have rated them best personal injury law firm.
You have one opportunity to call the best.
Hupy and Abraham.
They got me $750,000.
Over $1 million.
If you've been injured in an accident, tell them you mean business. Call Hupy and Abraham, 800-800-5678 right now. If you're injured in a serious accident, the insurance company is not your friend. Don't accept a low, short-sighted offer.
I called Hupy and Abraham.
I found out what my case was really worth.
$600,000.
$250,000.
$350,000.
Not only did they get me what I deserved, they got me a lot more.
Make the call to a fighter, a winner.
They really do mean business.
Call 800-800-5678. Hupy and Abraham right now.
Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio.
Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and today we have special guest attorney Jason F. Abraham. He began his career with Hupy and Abraham as a personal injury lawyer in Milwaukee in 1993 and was promoted to shareholder in 1999. Attorney Abraham's proficiency in handling personal injury matters attracts clientele from across the nation. He has settled or tried personal injury cases with a combined value of approximately $400 million and resolved many cases for over $1 million each. His expertise in personal injury matters has granted him lecturing opportunities in numerous states across the nation. All right, welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks so much for having me. Wow, that just means I'm old. Everything that you said there just means I'm old.
Well, we're in the same club. It is what it is. With age comes wisdom, right?
Exactly.
So I'd like to start this show by asking if you have a time in your business or personal life where you experienced a tough situation and how you got back on track.
You know, when we were chatting just before we started, you know, that's a really interesting question. And I think one really apropos for the last couple of years with COVID. And, you know, there hasn't been a lot of hard challenges to overcome, because I think with hard work and dedication, it's fairly easy to overcome a lot of that stuff. But COVID was a whole nother matter. And no one was expecting a situation where you have a worldwide pandemic and governors may close you down. We have offices all throughout the Midwest, 11 of them actually. And we were extremely worried that the governors were going to close us down. And what are we going to do? And I had 210 employees at the time. And that brought a lot of challenges. But on the heels of all that, it also brought out a lot of craziness in people. I think people got upset, tired, stuck at home. And unfortunately, I had a client that came out of the woodwork from 10 years earlier, where he had threatened to kill me 10 years earlier.
Oh, wow.
After, unfortunately, his mother was killed in a car accident. We got all the available insurance, but he didn't want to pay Medicare back, which was something we had to do. And no matter how I told him it had to be done, it wasn't good enough. And he threatened to kill me. And, back 10 years ago, when that would happen every once in a blue moon, you really didn't worry about someone actually following through on that. Well, today's time is a little different. And the same client, fast forward 10 years in COVID, reached back out again and said, if you don't give me money, I'm going to kill you. And it was much more real this time, because in the news over the last 5 years, there's been a lot of stuff where people have actually followed through on those threats. And we had to lock our office down. I had to have the police at my house every night. I had to get a restraining order. And on top of the stress of COVID and what it meant for a firm with 11 offices in 3 states, I had, this client threaten to kill me. And, it was a little more worrisome. My family was very upset and worried. And I went through the court process, got the restraining order, did what I needed to do. And thankfully, I'm still here to talk to you. But it was, it was a scary time dealing with that on top of everything else that COVID brought, all the COVID challenges, even some of those that we're still dealing with. But that was something that really comes to mind now, because it was kind of a shocker and scary and really threw me for a loop for a period of time. But thankfully, that's behind me now, and we're back running and trying to deal with the new normal here, kind of post-COVID.
Yes. Now, how did you get into personal injury? When you were a little kid, were you like, oh, you got hurt, let me help you out? Or how did this?
That's a great question. I knew when I was a little kid that I wanted to be a lawyer. My grandfather and my father were both lawyers. They weren't trial lawyers. They weren't personal injury lawyers. They were business lawyers. But I said at a young age, because I didn't know any better, I want to be a lawyer, because they were lawyers. But I had a good gift for the gab. I like talking in front of people. I'm not intimidated in those kind of processes. And so I followed that dream. I went to college, went right into law school. And then in law school, I took some internships where I could actually go into court and try cases for the Legal Aid Society and others. And I just knew right then and there I wanted to be a trial lawyer, but I didn't know exactly what that meant, like what kind of trial lawyer. When I graduated for 1 year, I did criminal defense. And it was awesome, because I had my first trial within 2 weeks of graduating, my first jury trial, and it was nerve-wracking, it was exciting. I wasn't passionate about representing criminals. I knew I was passionate about being in the courtroom.
Yeah.
And so then I was lucky enough within about a year after graduation to get it. There was an opening here at the former Hupy and Abraham, and I was hired. And once I got into this arena of being as a trial lawyer for injured people, I knew right away I was hooked. And to be honest, coming to work every day for the last 29 years, it doesn't feel like work. It's felt like just coming in and being excited, making a difference, helping people. And that really makes it easy, I think, to succeed when you love what you do and you become passionate about it. So I was very lucky that my job lined up with my passion. That doesn't happen very often. And as I say to everyone that's worked for me, or when I'm doing a lot of lecturing, I always tell people that your success is driven by luck and timing. And then after that, you have to parlay that with hard work to really give yourself the ability to be successful. But you need to be humble enough to understand that luck and timing play such a huge role in your success. Because if I wasn't lucky enough to get a job in this firm, I would have never been able to reach my full potential. I then worked super hard and I've earned everything I've got, but I had the luck and timing. And then I had a lot of luck and timing of having great people that have been working with me over the last 30 years that have helped me just exceed all my dreams and expectations.
Yes, yes. Now, I work with an attorney group in Canada as a consultant, and I know that those attorneys, they put in some hours. It's not a 30, 40-hour work week
No,
ever.
it's
How
not.
does your work week look? How many hours do you typically work?
Now it's different for me, obviously, because I'm at a different stage in
Uh-huh.
my career. I'm the managing partner of the firm now, and I put my dues in. But back in the day when I was trying lots of cases and I was really in the grind, it was common for me to work 67 hours, 60 to 70 hours a week. Now, keep in mind, as a personal injury lawyer, we don't do anything by the hour. So I'm not driven by having to work those hours to get paid. I was just driven by doing the work to get ready for trials. And,
Mhm.
I've tried probably over 100 cases and I've represented myself personally thousands of clients. And you've just got to do the back work to get the
Right.
insurance company to take the cases seriously. So, that's what it was in the height of the grind. It's obviously nowhere near that now. Now, I'm working harder, smart. I'm working hard and smart, but I'm also understanding you don't know how long you're going to be here. And I want to enjoy the fruits of my labor, my family, and also enjoy time off where I wouldn't have done that so much earlier in my career.
Mhm, mhm. Now, do you have one particular case that really stood out for you?
Oh boy, to be honest, there's lots and lots of cases that have stood out to me, but one really interesting case that was, challenging and very interesting was I had a client that was on a young child. I think he was 5 at the time. He was on a Fisher Price riding car. They're battery operated. You see these Jeeps, and they have Barbie Jeeps, and they have all these things, and they market them, and they're battery operated and go about 2 miles an hour. I had one for my daughter before this happened, and they had marketed uh, the little Jeep with what they called a realistic gas cap. And so what happened was the battery was running dead in the backyard. The child thought that he knew what he could do to get the car going again, and that was, since there was a gas cap on it, it was meaningless because the battery was under the seat. Um, he went and got the family gas can, took the little cap off, which went nowhere, poured gas all over himself, all over the Jeep. And what happens is these Jeeps on the bottom have a brush wire motor. And what I didn't really know before that is what starts on fire isn't necessarily the gasoline, it's the fumes. So the fumes got trapped underneath the Jeep. When he went then and pushed down on the brake, it went up and started on fire. He started on fire. He ran into the house, and with every step he took on the carpeting, he burned his footprints into the carpet. And then his parents were getting ready. They were going on a family trip, and he came in on fire.
Wow.
And they had to put their child out, and then he was flighted to a hospital near me here in Milwaukee, and they contacted us, and we ended up making a claim against the product manufacturer and also the gas can manufacturer. And then we ultimately settled the case after picking a jury in Cook County, Illinois. And it took 7 years to get the case to trial. We had over 300,000 in expenses in the case.
Mhm.
It ended up being a really sizable result, rightfully so for what happened. But it was, when you're dealing with an injury to a child, and I had a young child myself at that time, and I actually had one of those vehicles.
Mm.
I could only imagine as a parent, because these things could happen to any one of us.
Right.
And my daughter coming in on fire, I can't even imagine. So you just feel an
Yeah.
insane amount of pressure to succeed in
Mhm.
all your cases, but it's just a little more meaningful when you have a child that's burned over 40% of their body. And it's a hard case. It wasn't easy. It was hard fought. They hired great lawyers, great experts, and ultimately we prevailed. And it was 7 years worth of time and energy, and ultimately we got the result we wanted, and we're really happy.
Now, how does that work as far as with the time? Do they compensate for that time value as far as because it takes so long to actually finish a case?
No.
And
So what happens is, in a case like that where you have a permanent injury, you get a line on the verdict, for example, that would be past pain and suffering. So
Mhm.
the fact that it took 7 years to get the case to trial, that time period would be 7 years. And
Okay.
then you'd also get like future pain and suffering. And then you'd have lines for all different things: future medical expenses, disfigurement,
Right.
parents lost to society and companionship. So you have all these lines, but there is no set enhancement for a case taking that long. If that case would have been tried for me in my Wisconsin market, it probably would have taken 3 or 4 years to get to trial. In my Iowa market, it's probably around the same. It's just in Illinois, those cases take, they take that long. 7 years seem crazy to me.
Right.
Because I knew the child at 5, and then by the time you try the case, the child is 12, and it's just crazy to see that much time go by. But in this kind of a case, it actually is an advantage in a little way when you have a serious case like this, because you get the jury gets a better view of how the scars really are going to look moving forward. For example, you try a case 2 years after the accident, that you may not get the same look of what the injuries are actually going to be like. Or this child had a lot of PTSD. You get a longer history of the doctors coming in, the psychologists coming in and saying, yes, I've seen this child for 7 years and these things are still there. When I'm trying cases 2 or 3 years old and you're saying those things, the jury doesn't really know, is that going to continue? When you hit 7 years and it's still going, the jury knows that that's going to keep going. So there's some disadvantages in that it takes so much time, but on serious cases, there's also some advantages because they get a better snapshot of how this is going to be over time.
Now, for anybody listening in who might think, oh my gosh, I just had such and such happen, or my friend or relative had whatever kind of an injury or a situation show up, how would they know when is a good time to contact somebody to help with a personal injury, or if they have a case, or how does that work?
That's a great question. And personal injury lawyers, as we talked earlier, are paid by the job. So I get hired and I get paid on what's called a contingency fee, which means I get a third or 40%, depending on the case, of whatever I collect. I get that whether you hire me day one or you hire me 3 years down the road. So in this kind of arena, it is much better to contact a personal injury lawyer immediately for a number of reasons. Number one, the fee is going to cost the same. So get the personal injury lawyer on the case right away to protect you, because you're paying the same anyways. Number two, we know what evidence needs to be protected, preserved. For example, in some very serious motorcycle accidents you've had DOT cams that if you don't get that evidence within 30 days, those tapes are looped and then it's lost forever. I had some roller coaster cases. If you don't get on them and get an expert out there within a week of the incident happening, that stuff's going to be changed. Companies change, they fix, and then you have no idea how the accident happened. In the news recently, you have that poor situation where that gentleman is in that ride with the shoulder harness and they didn't pull the harness down right. And then he fell out as the ride went down and got killed. I think that was last week in the news, all over the news. And you wouldn't think that companies would change and fix, but they do. The textbook case for this we learned in law school was the Ford Pinto case, where Ford got notice, and this was before the internet, before people could easily check on all this stuff, but they had noticed that in some rear end collisions on the Ford Pinto, the gas tanks would blow up, start on fire, and people would be burned alive inside the car. Well, it started happening all around the country, and Ford was made aware of it, and they sat down with their accountants and they looked at it and they said, okay, if we recall all the Ford Pintos and fix the gas tank, it's going to cost X. If we see how many people get burned alive, some will make claims, some won't, some will win, some will lose. That'll cost us Y. Y is less than X, so we're going to do Y and let people get burned alive. And then ultimately lawyers did some discovery and found that exact memo where they went through that analysis. And then they got crushed, obviously, for making a decision of profits over people. Right. And that stuff just does happen. So my advice is get a lawyer involved early, because it doesn't cost you anymore and evidence will be preserved. And a lawyer can also tell you, is there a case or not? We get calls all the time where people are well-intended and they ask and there just is no case. For whatever reason, there may not be one. So a lawyer can tell you that right away as well.
And then is there like a fee for people to call in for that, or it's a free consult?
Free
situation?
Everything is free unless we get money for you. So if you call here and we say, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do, that's free. If you hire us, for example, and for some reason the case gets lost, something could come about, not every case is won, you don't pay anything either. And we take the position that not only do you not pay us any fee, but you don't have to pay us any costs either. So if I've spent $10,000 on contacting experts, your doctors, done whatever, and we're not successful, we eat that as well. So our clients are never out any money at all if we don't get them money.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Now, your company, your firm, you serve everywhere in the United States or certain states?
We have the biggest personal injury law firm in the Midwest. So I have 11 offices through Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois. But people contact us from anywhere in the country, and we help them if we can. If not, we have relationships with other lawyers. You know, when you've done this as long as we have and represented, we've actually represented over 70,000. It's hard to believe the number is so big, over 70,000 people, and received over $1 billion for injured people. When you've done it as long as we have, as successfully as we have, you know, you get to know the other good people around the country that are doing what we're doing. So if we can't help you, or it has to go into suit, we can find people that we know are capable lawyers in other locations. But I do represent people throughout the whole country.
Okay, okay. Now, a lot of times I've heard people, well, don't get an attorney involved. Your insurance will cover it. It's all good. But does the insurance company then do the suing and collect extra money on your behalf that you don't get, or how does that work? I've always wondered, this is my own question. I've always wondered how that works.
Your insurance company is not really gonna do much to help you against someone else's insurance company to get you compensated. The only way they do that is for property damage. So let's say you and I have an accident and you're at fault. I know that would never happen because you're such a good driver.
Right.
But let's just say something crazy happens and you rear-end me on the highway.
Squirrel ran in front of
Yeah,
me.
exactly. Something crazy. And you rear-end me on the highway and my car is damaged and your company is giving me a hard time, and I decide, the heck with it, I'm going to use my own company to pay the damage to my vehicle. And then I have to pay my deductible that I have on my policy. In that circumstance, my own insurance company will go back after your insurance company, get the money back for the property damage, and then my insurance company will get my deductible back. Those are the only circumstances that my insurance company is going to help me against you. They're not going to help me get pain and suffering money from your company, any other lost wages, medical bills, any of that stuff. They're not going to help you in that regard at all.
Right.
Now, I do have people that call me and say, should I be able to handle this case myself? And I say, you can if you choose. If you go to the doctor one time or two times, and there isn't going to be much more than that, you know, that's a small enough case that you could probably handle that yourself. Without much difficulty. It's not going to be a big case. The insurance company is going to give you some money for pain and suffering for the length of your treatment. But if there's any case of size, you really are going to need a lawyer, because this is an adversarial process. Even if you're going against your own company, let's say you didn't have insurance and I'm going after my company for uninsured motorists. Even though it's my company, people think, well, they're going to treat me so fairly because I pay them premiums. That really isn't true. It's an adversarial process. They want to pay you as little as possible because they make money on taking premiums and paying as little as possible on claims. So if a case is really small, there isn't much treatment needed, that's a case you could probably handle on your own. You don't have to, but you probably can handle it on your own. If the case has size, I would advise getting a lawyer, because the lawyer is going to know every type of damage you can collect. The lawyer's going to know the games the insurance companies try to play. And you're going to have an advocate that's out there fighting for you in an arena that you don't know much about. If you're not in this system and in this arena, it's challenging, because you may take what the insurance company tells you at face value, and the reality is they're holding back on things that you would have no way of knowing. So the long and the short of that, I know it's a winded answer, is if you don't need much treatment, you probably can handle it on your own. If it's a case of any size, you probably should have a lawyer just to make sure you're protected.
You know, I go back to 18 years old. I had my first job at JPL programming in the engineering department, and I got on the freeway. I was rear-ended by a semi truck that was not insured.
Really?
My goodness. And my insurance paid for everything. And I thought, wow, I'm so lucky I got a new car. I had my company insurance. I went to the doctor. They said I would be out a few years, I ended up doing alternative acupuncture and going to work in pain because I didn't want to lose my first good job.
Yeah.
And so I suffered through all that, but
Yeah.
I thought I got my car replaced. I was good. Had I known, I probably would have. I didn't know there was any recourse.
Yeah. You were entitled to a lot more than that. And that's
Yeah.
what we see sometimes now insurance companies do is they call people up immediately after the accident where people don't really realize how serious their injuries may be. And
Mhm.
they give them a check for 500 or $1,000. They get them to sign off and then you're done.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you need $25,000 worth of medical care over the next 9 months, and then you're left with a permanent neck injury, and they got you to sign off right away. So this is
Yeah.
adversarial. We all have to realize that they are for-profit companies, insurance companies, and believe me, they're not making money paying the claims. They're making money accepting the premium.
Yes, so that's so important. I did not know that if they weren't insured that my company would be able to pay me more. I just thought, "Okay, I'm out."
Yeah, they would have been able to pay you on uninsured motorists. They would have
Yeah.
paid you just like the semi had insurance. They would stand in the place of the semi and be on the hook for all the same damages as if you went after the semi directly.
Yeah, so that's important to know that if I don't think they did all that much for me, to be honest. I paid everything
The other
privately.
thing that's important to know along these lines is what's called underinsured motorists. In some states, that's mandatory coverage. In other states, it's not. And it is extremely important for people to buy underinsured motorist as well. And what that means is here in Wisconsin, for example, where my main office is, the limits are 25,000. So that's the lowest someone could have and buy insurance, but that is not a lot of money if something happens. So if somebody hurts me and they only have 25,000 of coverage, I can buy underinsured motorist coverage. And if I have that, that would then stand in place to pay more money in the event the 25,000 isn't enough. And
Mhm.
you want to make sure that you buy as much insurance as you can afford. It's very easy to buy what's called an umbrella, which is insurance over and above your auto coverage. They sell that in $1 million increments, and it's based also on your driving record. But in most circumstances, $1 million of umbrella coverage is under $500 a year. And that'll cover $1 million if you hurt someone else. And if you add the uninsured and underinsured endorsement on that as well, you have to add that, then you'll have $1 million of coverage in the event someone hurts you and doesn't have insurance, or they hurt you and they don't have enough. You
Right.
don't want to find out about all this stuff after the accident happens and then realize, darn, I wish I had it. And unfortunately, I find that insurance agents aren't doing a great job of educating the consumers on the
Mhm.
insurance they should buy, because the companies, and this is crazy to think, they really don't want you to buy the umbrella because the $1 million of coverage is only $500 or less.
Right,
And
right.
that's more on the books exposure for them. And so it's crazy to think that the agents aren't pushing these things, because there are a lot of people out there that would easily pay $400 or $500 for it just in case something bad happens, but no
Mhm.
one told them about it. And it's crazy. So we really need to be educated consumers. Go out there and buy the amount of insurance that you
Excuse me.
so God forbid something happens to someone like happened to you, with a semi truck hits you and doesn't have insurance, or a car doesn't have enough, you're protected.
Mhm. Definitely, I'm grabbing some water. Oh my goodness. So I'm in the desert right now, and it is really dry. So that's really important to know. And if you have any assets, that umbrella policy is so important.
Huge. Yeah, huge. Because an accident can happen to any one of us. And
Mhm.
even if, we're paying attention, we're not texting, we're not drinking, something can still happen. And if we hurt someone, we want to make sure we have enough insurance to protect what we do to somebody else, and also protect the assets we've worked our whole life to accumulate.
Right, right. That is so true. Now, how do you as a company, get involved with your community, give back to the community?
I'm so glad you asked that, because we have a mission statement that says we're going to give back to the community based on our successes. And it is something that we live, eat, breathe here at Hupy and Abraham. And it's really one of the best parts about the job is that, we've done great work and helped people in really bad circumstances. And then we've parlayed that to make our communities a better place where we practice. We've actually given over $1 million of our own money to do basic things for people in these communities, feed people. Over the holidays, we generally feed about 40,000 people. We're involved in, the amazing big charities like Make-A-Wish and Habitat for Humanity. Our employees have been out there every year building houses for people. But we also promote contests on our website, hupy.com, where people out here can promote charities. Mm-hmm. And then we run contests where then the general public gets to vote, and then we give money to very small organizations. I've gone out and handed checks to dog rescues, animal rescues, people out there feeding the homeless or providing warming rooms. And I have had the ability to meet some of the most amazing people I would have never met in my life that are just doing so much good. And if we go give them a check for $2,500, it means so much to them. And so it is so fun. We've also developed a system in our firm where we give volunteer hours. So our employees get to go out and they get, I can't remember now if it's 16 hours a year where they get to go out, and we pay their time off if they go volunteer out in the community. And we were just at the Humane Society for a telethon, myself and some of my employees, a couple of weeks ago. And who doesn't feel good about holding puppies and answering phones for a telethon? And I'll tell you, it is so awesome to see all my employees out there understanding that their hard work for our clients has enabled us to be able to do all these things in the community. And it really is an awesome, inspiring thing to see how it's worked in real life. When I started here, we maybe had 14 people. And, at our height, we've had, I think, 207 right before COVID. And just to be able to see the reach we have in what we do, it's really amazing. And it just shows that all of us can make a difference if we choose to. And if we're committed to it, you should see how excited our employees get about the ability to go out in the community and do great things.
So good. So good. Now, as an attorney, we talked a little bit about protecting yourself with an umbrella policy. Is there anything else for those people that just for the protection side of if something happens that we can't avoid in our business, in our homes, that would cause a lawsuit, and we're the ones defending ourselves? What would be in place that would help us ensure that we wouldn't lose everything?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the umbrella for the average person, non-business owner, is the real big ticket item. Have as much insurance as you can afford and back it up with at least $1 million umbrella, because that goes a long way. That'll protect you probably for 98% of the things that could go wrong in an accident. It's not going to protect you for everything, but if you protect yourself with an umbrella, 98% of the things that could go wrong in an accident, you're going to feel real good about that at night.
Yes.
For me as a business, I think the key as business owners is to have a really good insurance agent. So you find out all the different coverages that are available and be what I call business smart and buy them all because you just never know. And I'll tell you another thing that happened to us over COVID, during COVID, is we got ransomware. Okay, this is another like crazy thing. When it rains, it pours. Clients threatened to kill me. Russian hackers somehow getting into our computer system. But that's exactly what happened. And we had all these things in place to make sure we couldn't get hacked. I mean, I had a friend of mine whose business was hacked about 2 weeks before mine, and I called my IT director and I said, Ozzy, you won't believe this. My friend's business in New York got hacked. Their initial demand, the hackers, to him to get the key to reopen all their stuff, and I'm not a computer guy, so I don't know all the exact terminology, was $10 million. I said, can you imagine $10 million? He's like, Jason, don't worry. We do this, we do this, we do this, we do this. We could never get hacked. Okay, fast forward 2 weeks, we got hacked. I'm in here at 6 a.m. and I'm meeting with one of my staff members, and we're actually downloading documents that I'm going to use in the restraining order paperwork with the court. And then this is like a bad movie. All of a sudden, something comes across my screen and says, we have total control of all of your computer systems. Go to this URL and we'll tell you how much Bitcoin it's going to cost you to get it.
Wow.
And so I'm like, well, when you're sitting there and you're looking at it at 6 a.m, you're thinking that, yeah, this is a joke. Like,
Right.
and so all of a sudden I have a few other employees come in and they've printed it off and they're like this. And I'm like, oh my God. And I call my IT director at home and he doesn't normally come in, I think till 7:30 or 8. And I said, Ozzy, and I read him the message and there's like dead silence on the phone. And, you know, even though we had thought about it, we had talked about it, we had testing every year to have people try to break into our system. I mean, we were on it. You know, I don't blame him a lick. You know, these people, they just are smarter and more creative and they keep doing whatever they're doing. So he comes in and sure enough, they were able to shut down every workstation, every server, and every office, and you are done at that point. And thankfully, with all the backups we had, he was able to get every workstation and every office up and running within 48 hours. But what happens is and I had insurance. The point of the story is I had bought insurance for this. I didn't know how much, but I thought I bought it. And I call my agent at 6:15 and, you know, he's not working. And I said, listen, we've just been hacked. Do I have insurance coverage?
Yes.
He calls me back and he said, yes, you do. You have about $1.2 million in coverage. And I'm like, thank God.
Yeah.
Well, they hire a negotiator, start negotiating with these people in Russia. And their initial demand to us was $3 million. And here you think, oh my God, I've got $1.2 million worth of coverage. I'm totally protected. Well, their initial demand was $3 million. And these negotiators that the insurance company they hired a lawyer that specializes in this to help us, and the negotiator. The long and the short of it is my insurance company paid them $1 million in Bitcoin to be able to get the key. And we didn't need the key because my IT director had us up and running. But what you need is they prove to you that they've actually taken some data and they've taken like police reports and stuff in our possession. We don't have credit cards because we're a contingency fee firm, but the had the potential to look at clients' social security numbers.
Yeah.
And so then you pay the $1 million to get the data back to protect your clients from having their information be on the dark web. So,
wow.
You know, the long and the short of that is have an agent that can walk you through anything that they know and see that could happen. This was before ransoming was really as hot a topic as it is now. It's a huge problem now. But before it was a huge problem, I had the coverage. I sat down with my agent. I said, what should we have? Tell me all the different coverages that I should potentially have to make sure I can sleep at night and not have to worry. And it ends up being a fairly sizable bill. But then when all of a sudden I got ransomware, I had the protection. I had someone there backing me up.
I would have never thought to get that coverage.
Yeah.
So that's really good.
Yeah. So I had a good agent and I wasn't penny wise and pound foolish. I paid money because I'm in the insurance business and I understand the way I sleep better at night is understanding, God forbid something happens, because something will eventually happen.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to be covered. So I'm not writing a personal check for $1 million to pay the ransom people, because that's what you have to do, or they dump all your clients' information on the dark web. And then you get exposed to lawsuits from clients because you didn't do a good enough job of protecting their information.
Wow. This is an interesting time we're in for sure.
Crazy.
Our new kind of pirates.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Well, that is very good information. Now, again, for those, we're getting to the end of our talking time. So I would like to know if somebody just wanted to get a consult and they just had some kind of injury, how do they connect with you?
Sure. They can call us at 800-800-5678. We have people answering phones 24/7. They can also go to hupy.com and learn more about us, and there's contact forms and stuff on there. But we're happy to answer your question. We're happy to help in any way we can. We hope nothing bad ever happens to any of our listeners, but God forbid something does, we're here to help.
All right. Thank you again for being a guest on the show, Jason. And for those tuning in, we'll be back after these messages.
Thank you so much for your time.
Over the last 50 years, we have helped over 70,000 clients receive more than $1 billion for their injuries. We have received hundreds of awards for the services we provide. We remain voted best and rated best throughout our practice areas and local communities.
If you've been injured in an accident, call Hupy and Abraham today at 800-800-5678.
Hupy and Abraham has been voted best by the public year after year. Now, top media outlets have rated them best personal injury law firm.
You have one opportunity to call the best.
Hupy and Abraham.
They got me $750,000.
Over $1 million.
If you've been injured in an accident, tell them you mean business. Call Hupy and Abraham, 800-800-5678 right now. If you're injured in a serious accident, the insurance company is not your friend. Don't accept a low, short-sighted offer.
I called Hupy and Abraham.
I found out what my case was really worth.
$600,000.
$250,000.
$350,000.
Not only did they get me what I deserved, they got me a lot more.
Make the call to a fighter, a winner.
They really do mean business.
Call 800-800-5678. Hupy and Abraham right now.
If you are just tuning in, this is NBC Sheila Mack Show here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and I have a special Happy New Year announcement for you. That's right, just for beautiful, authentic you. So in this new year, I am personally plugging in all my 2022 up-leveling routines. That's right. I'm not doing goals, or as much to say as I'm not just doing a resolution that I talk about or just write it down on a list. I'm actually already scheduling in the small acts that I need to do each day that are actually going to bring me results over this 365, I guess, or less now, when you're listening in 363 to whatever it is, days. So at any rate, one of the things that I would like to introduce is that we will be having some talks on business and investing. That's right, business and investing reboots this year. So if you are looking to do a side gig, or you have a business yourself, or you're in a career and you are looking to earn some extra money, I have some tips and different things that my family, I have 6 grown children, we will all be participating in some of these and trying them out and sharing opportunities with you. And then we will also be talking about real estate investing, which is something that I have done since I was very young. So my real estate investing experience comes from, well, when I was 18 and a half years old, I bought my first little triplex. I was already working at Jet Propulsion Lab in JPL in Pasadena, California, where we have the famous Rose Bowl every year right near there. And so I saved up my money and bought this little triplex. It was very humble kind of fixer thing. And I lived in the back teeny tiny unit and rented out the best parts to everyone else. I guess I was house hacking before that was a term. And I continued to save up and invest. I was very creative on my financing, still going to school and working. So, from that to investing in many different properties, I started gift stores at 23, and the first one I leased at $5,000 a month. And I said, wait a minute, that's a lot of money to be giving to somebody, the landlord, every single month. And my mortgage, if I can save up enough to put down, I can get into a mortgage. And you know what? With business credit, which I will be sharing all about, I did just that. And business credit is a magical secret. So if you don't have a side gig, that's why that first part is important with your investing, is to have that extra income or side gig, have an LLC or an S Corp. So setting that up at 23 when I started my gift stores, by the end of the first year, I had more buying power than most people. I had a corporation's buying power. Like, they would give me credit. You can't believe I could just walk into any dealership and they'd have these specials. I'd get the best credit, like zero interest. I'd be able to negotiate the deals on things, different vans or whatever I needed for the store. And it was just incredible. And I actually used the business credit to purchase some of the properties. One was the headquarters and rental property. And so I had some mixed use, and I actually purchased the other 4 buildings and stopped leasing and just became an owner. And so I got into real estate and investing from being an investor, and then later as other store owners were really interested and wondered, wait a minute, you're half my age, they would say. And how are you buying buildings? What is going on? And so with that, I went ahead and I got my real estate license and started sharing about that. Worked at a small owned brokerage. And then from there, helped and led some real estate courses for real estate agents on 1031 exchange, and have done multiple 1031 exchanges and helped many small business owners and families to invest in property. So I'll be sharing about my journey and how this year, even if you think, this sounds like, how is this possible? I'm going to help you figure out if that's something you're interested in, ways that you can make it become a real possibility for 2022 moving forward. So I hope you tune into my show. There will be some upgrades. We will still be doing lots of incredible interviews with amazing people sharing about resources and reboots and ways they got back on track and hearing their stories. And also we will be getting step-to-step challenges and ways for you to tune in, call in, and ask questions and be guided to actually make 2022 a wonderful time for your business and your personal life. All right, so stay tuned. I'm looking forward to hearing from you soon. Overview of the Boots formula. In December of 2017, I lost my house, my car, and my cat due to a fire. It sounds like a country music song, but that was my reality. And yet another rock bottom situation. After a long period of doing really well, when we're able to retrain our minds to focus on the positives, we're able to enjoy more of life, even while we're rebuilding and rebooting. We're going to starve those negative thoughts, not feeding them with our attention, time, or energy. When you focus on the good parts of your life, those things that you can be grateful for in this moment, that energy will bring even more good things your way. Contribute and utilize your unique talent. You're not thinking about the problem at hand. You're not showing up for approval. You're just being your best self. You use your rock bottom to set the direction for your life beyond this rock bottom situation. It's important that you are really honest about where you are in this situation. You can't lie because you don't want to give up your personal responsibility. You have to own every part of this and realize it could be worse. It could be better, but this is it. If you aren't able to be honest about where you're starting from, you won't be able to clearly see where you want to go or how to get there. The next letter of Boots will help you answer that. The second O is for order of operations. The third step of the Boots formula is finding the order of operations. When you're in a rock bottom moment, there are certain steps you know you need to take to get out of it, and you need to complete those steps in a certain order. T is for thinking. The fourth step of the Boots formula is thinking. If you recall your thinking at the most successful points in your life, it's probably vastly different from your thinking when a crisis brings you to a rock bottom situation. Often, at the toughest times, our thinking goes to survival. We lose sight of the possibilities and opportunities that are before us. This is where thinking comes into play. It's vital to have a strong mindset in order to keep our boots on and walk out of a rough spot in life. Thinking leads you to a clear vision of where you want to go on that map of your desired outcome. You've made the decision that you're going to New York. Your bags are packed. You have an idea of how you're going to get there. You know the steps you need to take, though you may not know how the hell you're going to take them all, but you've made up your mind. That's where you're going. Tony Robbins often says, it's in the moment of decision that one's destiny is shaped. That decision is the thought that comes before the action steps required to reach your new goal. Everything happens in this step, in that decision. You can see it, feel it, embody it. Things start to show up because you're looking for them and you're open to them. You'll start getting the results you want just because that decision is in your mind. It becomes that real to you. Once you have that clear vision in your mind, you have to see yourself as if you already are living in your desired reality. You're just doing the steps to get there. S is for stepping up. The fifth and final step of the Boots formula is a literal step, stepping up. You've gone through the first 4 steps. You've decided how you're going to show up. You have a picture of where you're going. You know the steps you need to take, and you've made the decision to actually do something. It would be nice if you could just sit, think, and meditate your desired outcome into being. But that's not the way it works. There is some validity to the idea of manifesting what you want, but at the same time, you have to believe enough to actually go out there and take the risk. You have to overcome your fear of giving your first presentation, making your first speech, or writing your first book. You have to get out of your comfort zone, and you have to take those steps. S is for stepping up by taking the personal responsibility required for a real reboot. While the B in Boots is about being in the present with who you are in the situation, S is for taking those steps toward the future you want. Although there will be many times in life where we have little or no true personal responsibility for an event that alters our lives, it is always a gift to own your own response and reactions to situations. What can you do to shift the energy and step up to your part in the situation? In order to reboot, one must be willing to step into action. This last step ties back to the first one. It all comes back to being. How are you going to be when you're going through this? Sometimes it's ugly, dirty, not pretty, and certainly not fun. Nobody's going to help you move, so you have to pack all the boxes yourself. Procrastinating isn't going to help. You just have to take those action steps you defined in the order of operations. When you first start, it's overwhelming because you feel like you're still buried in the situation. Chaos is all around. But because you've done the first 4 steps of Boots, you have an action plan. You're not doing 1,000 steps today. You just have to take 1. You do the things that you mapped out one by one, and that helps you see, okay, I can do that. You have clarity on the action steps, so now it's time to actually get moving. Are you ready to strap on your boots and start walking? From rock bottom to moment of empowerment. You may be thinking, okay, now I know the formula, but what does it look like in action? Great question. Let's look at the rock bottom moment I told you about at the beginning of the chapter.
Is not one size fits all, just like a pair of boots or a bra. So the formula is designed to help you through any situation.
To grab a copy of my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. It is now available on Audible as well as on Amazon and Kindle and at www.sheilamac.com. If you are just tuning in, this is NBC Sheila Mac Show here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and I have a special free gift announcement for you. That's right. Get a free introduction to the Boots formula and meditation by joining our email list for business leaders, busy moms, and rock stars like you. To get your free gift, just go to www.sheilamac.com/free gift. That's right, sheilamac.com/free gift for your gift today.